Oh cool, my shuttle has arrived. I couldn't think of a good sound to parody for this review that was also period correct for the vehicle, so just enjoy the sound of me complaining that I couldn't find a good song. 1996 Bravado Youga, everybody. Ah yes, we're doing another van on this channel, but unlike the minivan, this thing actually has some street cred. No nonsense, all style. The man/woman's van for all occasions, as long as those occasions are commercial trade, hauling your oversized family around, or bussing in the wrecking crew. I love these descriptions. Now, why did I choose to review this van? Well, two things. One, it's semi-good at drifting/power sliding in the hands of a skilled driver, sort of like me, and it has some real-world stuff attached to it, at least as far as the name goes. I'll get into that a little bit later. Unlike the minivan, the Bravado Youga could only seat 2 people, and the sliding doors appear to be non-functional or welded shut, because you can only open the 2 front doors and the rear cargo doors. This makes sense, however, because there is an optional modification for a roll cage. Why a roll cage, you ask? Allow me to explain. The Bravado Youga is one big reference to a form of van racing in Japan. Dajibans, as they are more commonly known, are stripped out, imported Dodge Ram vans used in racing. Noriaro made a video about it. I'll refer to it later in the video, and I'll also provide a link to it in the description. As well as racing, they also like to drift them as well. I mean, they are rear-wheel drive after all. Unfortunately, this car has no history, as GTA 5 was the debut title for this vehicle. I suppose a close cousin could probably be the Pony or the Rumpo. Alright, it's time to talk about the specs. In-game, the Youga features a 5-liter turbo diesel single overhead cam inline 4. I'm sure they meant to put a V8 in this engine compartment, but it was probably too small. It also has a weird hump on the valve cover, which I can only assume meant to be a supercharger. And actually, a buddy of mine said, yeah, it looks like a supercharger, dude. Despite being able to turbo. I also have reason to believe the engine was meant to be a V8 because the highest displacement 4-cylinder engine in a mass-produced car in real life doesn't even come close to 5 liters. That, of course, being the first-generation Pontiac Tempest with a 195 cubic inch 3.2-liter 4-cylinder engine. One final note as well, the engine appears to be transverse mounted. I can only assume it's so they could fit it into such a small engine bay. My theory is that Bravado used a transaxle to make it rear-wheel drive, kind of like how the Acura Legend is, horizontally mounted, or vertically mounted, I guess, and uses a transaxle for that. Now, this might explain why the engine or the vehicle itself is so slow, because all the power is going to the transaxle. That's just a theory. I'm not really sure. Just thought, make some couple theories, I guess. Speaking of power and acceleration, 0 to 60, as you expect for a van, is pretty slow. Unfortunately, the wiki does not list it, and I wasn't bothered to measure it either. But if I had to take a guess, it's probably 10 to 13 seconds. What's also slow is the engine revving. It takes a full 5 seconds for the engine to rev up to redline. It makes my Civic look like a race car with that time. I'd think the speed would be a bit quicker for the redline since the turbo diesel, and being a diesel engines typically have lower red lines than gas-powered cars or gas-powered engine. Being a rear-wheel drive van, of course, this thing can pull off low-speed drifts and power slides pretty easily with the right balance of hand braking and throttle. Now, to talk about the real world here. Youga. Why the name? Well, rather than having me explain it, I'll let Noriaro explain it for you. Let's roll the clip.
If the Snapchats you guys send me is anything to go by, a lot of people who watch Noriaro are gamers. So if you play Grand Theft Auto 5 and you've seen a van called the Youga that looks like one of these, here's the reason why it's called the Youga. There is a place in Tokyo called i5 Corporation. i5 is like an American car shop, and they sort of popularized this style of van. And the reason it's Yoga is because it's actually in the suburb of Yoga in Tokyo. So there you go. That's why in Grand Theft Auto 5 the Dodge van looking vehicle is called a Yoga.
That moment when you realize you've been pronouncing the name wrong this whole time. I'm not going to go back and change my freaking take, so I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Another thing I forgot to mention also is that the stock wheels for this van are based on Watanabe rims, which, as if you watch the Noriaro video, nearly all the vans at this meet are using some form of Watanabe, or probably reps, I'm assuming, because real not Watanabes are freaking expensive. So, but yeah, I actually was going to change the wheels to the Fujiwara wheels, but I didn't like how big they were, so I decided for this video I'd leave them stock. The only thing I hate about stock wheels is you can't paint them, but I decided, you know what, it's fine, it's just for the video. I just thought I'd leave that little unscripted note in there. Well, anyway, don't you feel smarter? As a long-time owner of one of these vans, I must say I really enjoy owning it. It may not be the fastest thing on the streets, but it's a van. What did you expect? I do occasionally get a few comments from well-informed players whenever I turn up the car meets, or turned up the car meets, because car meets encourage GTA Online? Hell no, I don't even play GTA Online anymore. I just play single player with mods, you know. Remember car meets, guys? Remember car meets? Remember drag races? Remember all those good times we had before the Oppressor Mark II and the Orbital Cannon? Remember that, guys? Man, I miss those days. I remember actually one note I want to do talk about is, in last gen, the Yuga sounds completely different than in next gen. It sounds more like an actual diesel in last gen, which I find odd. They never did that. And if you get the modified exhaust, it doesn't go pop 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 like in next gen. Just a little sign. I remember buying a Euro on my PS3 account, and it never did that. It sounded different and it looked different. And this is back when you couldn't use car doors and shit with your car menu. Anyway, is it practical? Hell no. But it kind of looks cool, especially when it's slower like mine. 1996 Bravado Yoga. I pronounced it right. At least I got one time. It's a van, but it's a cooler one. Yeah, that's about the end of my script there. I have just a bit of footage left, so I figured I'd just kind of talk about stuff. So, how'd you like that, guys? You think it was good? Think it was bad? My next review is probably going to be the PCJ 600. It's a favorite bike of mine. It's one of the classics. It's not as good these days with all the new bikes, but I still enjoy it. It's a good bike I always use for my old MC missions when I played GTA Online. It's a good bike. I think it just sounds good. It looks good. You know, what more can I say? Anyway, I'm out of footage here, so that's it for this video. If you liked it, hit like. If you didn't, I'm sorry. Anyway, guys, have a great weekend. See you later.